And when he was done with the banner, he said, oh, you talk about this girl, don't you? What's her name? I'll put it on your arm. I was so glad her name wasn't Catherine Elizabeth Ann Marie. And I looked at her. I looked at my cellmate, and I said, she's only written a couple times. I haven't heard much from her. Sure, I care about her. But I don't know if I care about her enough. I don't know if she'll be here. I don't know if she'll stay here. Could we just leave it blank? For now, could we just leave it blank? Yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't like Mom anymore. That's all right. I got out of prison in 2 years. Good behavior. And sure enough, she was there. She did wait for me, and it took a lot of talking, a lot of healing, but we were talking about marriage, and, of course she saw my arm, and she finally mustered up the strength to say, so what's the story of the rose tattoo? And it all flashed back. Thermofax, unconscious, blue. And so I began to tell her the story. I told her about the truck. I told her about the police. I told her about my testimony. I told her about prison. I told her about everything. And when she was done, she was really quiet, and she held my hand, and she said, so you going to do it? I said, do what? Are you going to put my name on your arm? Are you going to do it? And she smiled. And I had the question, was no even an answer? And I looked at her, and I held her hand, and I said, Kate, very short name. I said, Kate, there are many things that I'm proud of. I am proud of being at the Central Valley. I am proud of working in the fields. I am proud of changing my life. I love you, Kate. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, your heart to mine. I am proud of my choice of being a teacher. I'm proud that I'm going to take a step to help others make right decisions. But I'm not proud of what put me in jail. I'm not proud of sitting there. I'm not proud of thermofaxes. So, Kate, can I ask you this, please? Just once. Just once. Can we leave it blank? Can we leave it blank? About that time, he looked at me and I said, is that true? Is that a true story? And he was not listening to me. He was too busy rolling up his arm. And when he was done rolling up his arm, I saw a not-so-small blue tattoo. And underneath that, there was a banner that remains blank to this very day. When he told me that story, I said, it's a powerful, powerful story. I said, I would love to tell that story, and his immediate reaction was, no. I said, and I remember it was no more than a split second. I said, I will tell that story to help others so that they can hear that story. Could I have your permission? And his immediate reaction was, yes. And he went home, and he confided to me that he'd never written a story. And he took that story, and he spent most of the night, and he typed it up. And it was on one of those little typewriters. You could tell he didn't have a computer. And it was on that brown paper that you had in the 70s. And he had it in plastic, which I still have today. And I've been sharing that story in his honor. And hopefully we all can learn from listening to stories. At this time, what I'd like to do is some of you may have, while stories were being told, just have a small vignette or a slice of life is what I call it, about a story that happened to you. Maybe you didn't have a rose tattoo, but maybe something resounded with you. Maybe it was a bit of wisdom that your parents had said. Maybe it was a little story. Maybe somewhere these stories took you to a different place. So I'm going to give a moment to leave it as an open mic, and we'll fill some of that time and listen to your stories, because the Story Box and the Multicultural Center is about having a space to listen. It's about walking in and saying, maybe I'm not comfortable telling this story, or maybe I am, but I want a space to tell it. Whether it's in a box or told to a friend or told to someone who just says, I'm listening, we need to have those spaces, for that's where transformation comes from us. When we can let down our guard and say, wow, we share the same story, or we don't. Or we have different stories that keep us together. Anyone out there have a little vignette that they would like to share? Just come on. Whether you're taping or it's up to you. Anybody? Come on. Stories are what keep us together. It's the common. Please, thank you. And if you don't mind saying your name, you can. If you do, then don't say it.
My name's Jill, and a couple of years ago, my husband was in the Air Force and was deployed to Iraq, and he's never sat down and told me anything that has ever happened to him while he was in Balad, and we're very, very close and share absolutely everything except this. And as I was listening to the stories today, I realized that the transformation that has occurred in him is when we watch or listen to other stories of other soldiers or airmen that were deployed to the same place. He sits and cries, still doesn't share anything, but in that showing of emotion, he's telling me what he's experienced. And I have since been affected, obviously, and better understand, not in words, but in his expressing emotion, having listened and witnessed to other people's stories. So I appreciate the importance of not just writing and telling the stories, but listening, because we are transformed by them.
Thank you, John. As you noted, he's telling so much more by that strength. And sometimes we're not ready for stories. I've heard counselors, as a professional storyteller, I've worked with a number of people, and people have come up and said, my father was in the war, and it wasn't till this program, or it wasn't until we really sat down and had a story space that they opened up to talk. But on the same hand, we need to respect if that story isn't ready to be told. And if it's never ready to be told, it's something that we make a choice from, or we're affected by our stories. I also talk to a number of people who say, my grandmother passed away. I wish there was a way that I could have collected her stories. And very kindly, I say, did your grandmother know anyone? Go out there and meet the people that she knew. Call the uncle that nobody ever talked to and find out why. Because that person doesn't have bars with you. Look and find those stories. It is really important that if the person is no longer with us, that we find the people that they were with. And then that way, as the African proverb says, that a person is never lost when they're remembered. A person never dies when you tell stories about them. And so in a very little bit of time, in about an hour, I hope that you've been able to take a story journey. We may have time for one more story if you have that spark. But I commend the Read Aloud series. The Multicultural Center has a series of storytellers as early as next week. And from my understanding, there'll be a podcast of this. So if you wanted someone to listen, you'll have that option. There are so many ways that we communicate stories. We need two things for a storytelling experience or an event to happen. Actually, we need three. We need storytellers, and they don't have to be professional tellers, and we need someone to listen. It is a connected art. It's what brings us together. Unlike theater, you look out. In storytelling, you look in. You look at each other. And as you walk out, I want to challenge you to think about stories of your life or someone else's that you could put in one of the 50 story boxes around Columbus that will travel for 1 year and come back again. I want to thank Donna for giving us the invitation to come here. We're going to stay around so that if you would like to tell a story just to us, we're here for that reason too. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the day.